How's it going, everyone? I'm Salzy, and today I'm going to be describing what it feels like to be high on weed. Before we get into the main topic, I do want to point out that I am playing Cluster Truck. This game was pretty popular a few years ago. I just kind of wanted to switch up my gameplay because I've kind of just been binging Bloons for the past couple of weeks. If you like to see different types of gameplay, let me know in the comments below. With that said, let's get back into the main topic. Before beginning, I have to add a disclaimer that weed affects everyone differently. Your age, weight, metabolism, mental state, and more can all play a factor in the strength and effects of weed. There's no one way weed can make a person feel. I'm here to give an overview of my own experiences, so please keep in mind that if you choose to take weed, you should not expect to feel the exact same way I do. I rarely see people talking about both the negative and positive side effects. Most of the people I watch here on YouTube use and talk about weed very casually. It's not super often that people mention the potential anxiety around using weed. When I first started doing weed, there were some uncomfortable aspects, and I hope I can share that with you and give you an understanding of how to deal with those moments. I hope I can offer some balanced insight on both sides. So there are many ways to take weed. This mainly includes using topical creams, taking edibles, vaping, and smoking. Topical creams will not cause a person to become high, but they do serve as an ideal way for patients to relieve pain that's located in a specific body part. Topicals don't work as well for some people, while others swear by it. Now, edibles include everything you eat and drink. They come in the form of chocolates, gummies, drinks, and mints. Edibles tend to give a high that lasts longer, but they also take longer to take effect. Vaping and smoking will give you a near-instant high that lasts shorter than the high from edibles. I have personally tried all four of these forms of weed and prefer vaping and smoking. An important part of getting high is understanding what dosage works for you. Remember that you can always take more weed, but you can never take less. One time I smoked so much that I completely lost control of my body. I had some really bad vertigo, and I was literally swaying in my chair because I was off balance. I had some pretty intense muscle twitching that lasted about an hour, but that's a story for another day. Now, I'm going to save time and not list every possible effect of getting high. Instead, I'm just going to be talking about my experience only. First, in background, my weed of choice is a sativa or sativa heavy hybrid. While indica is generally sedative, sativa is meant to be used when you don't want to feel super tired. Even when I take sativa, I still feel really tired, so I don't want to take a really strong indica, at least not during the day. When I first considered taking weed, I really had no idea what it would feel like. I was nervous and excited at the same time. There was a part of me that wondered if it would be uncomfortable, so prior to taking weed for the first time, I was actually pretty nervous that I would hate being high. Ultimately, I reasoned with myself, even if weed did make me feel bad, the high would only last for a maximum of a few hours. I think there's this reputation that weed smokers all immediately liked the idea of taking weed, and maybe I'm an outlier because I did feel some hesitation. The first time I took weed, I vaped it. This was before I got my medical card, so I acquired the vape from someone I knew. I was told to take a really small dose because I had never tried it before. I took maybe 2 puffs and let that sink in, and I really didn't feel anything, but I didn't want to overdo it, so I waited a few days to try it again. The next time I tried weed, I took it in the form of an edible. I took 5 milligrams, which was 1 edible, and I didn't feel very much. Then the next time I tried weed, I took 2 5 milligram edibles, and suddenly I was absolutely baked. I was surprised because I felt nothing on 1 edible, but 2 edibles sent me over the moon. I noticed I was high when I started coming in and out of consciousness. I was awake, but my mind seemed to keep turning on and off. I would zone out, completely unaware of myself or my surroundings, then come to a few moments later. This feeling lasted for about as long as I was the most high, so probably 30 minutes to an hour. It might seem scary to be in and out of consciousness, but at the time it actually felt really good to me. The weed made me feel really elated and happy, so I was smiling nearly the entire time. I felt some muscle tension around my eyes and eyebrows, like a feeling almost as if I was opening my eyes really wide and lifting my eyebrows up. But I looked in the mirror, and I looked normal. Since the weed lifted my mood, I felt really happy to just engage in conversation with the people around me. However, when I tried to speak or respond to others, I would trip up on my words or forget what I was saying. I would lose focus and forget what I was just thinking. My thoughts would come and go, and if I tried to recall what I was just thinking about, I couldn't remember. The first few times I was high, this frustrated me, but after a while I tried to reframe my mindset. Instead of getting frustrated, I reminded myself to just let things go and enjoy the ride. I'm not sure if this is a normal or common experience for people when they get high, but I feel the need to lay down. I have a pretty low weed tolerance, so when the weed starts to kick in, I feel a sort of vertigo and my body feels really heavy. This makes me need to at least recline back in a chair, if not lay down. But let's move on to the important part. I take weed to alleviate symptoms of chronic pain. I have really bad pain in both of my lower legs. When I'm high, my legs kind of feel weightless. It feels like the pain is slowly rising up from my legs and dissipating into the air. My pain never goes away fully, but the weed definitely gives me some reprieve from the intensity. Usually my legs also feel cold, but when the weed kicks in, I feel my body fill with this kind of nice warmth. It's not like burning hot, but it's a really pleasant feeling. But the weed doesn't just make the pain feel better, it puts me in a mindset that's capable of dealing with that pain. Like I said previously, I feel happy and I have an elated mood on weed. While normally the pain really brings my mood down, the weed counteracts the negative emotions associated with my pain. It's a lot easier to deal with pain when you're in a better headspace. For me, I had to learn to not freak out when the weed changed my perception of the world. It can be pretty jarring when suddenly you're not firing on all cylinders. When I first started taking weed, it bothered me that I had trouble with memory and comprehension. I found that it's best not to fight that feeling, but embrace it. For a few hours a day, it can feel really good to be mindless. You won't be your sharpest on weed by any means, but you're also not supposed to be your sharpest on weed. When I take weed, I know that I have to reframe my mindset. I have to tell myself that I'm going to be a big dummy for a few hours, and I have to accept that. I can't fight it, so I should try to enjoy it. If you've never taken a mind-altering substance before, your natural instinct will be to try to return to your normal state of being. But when you're high, the chemicals in your brain will not magically become balanced because you want them to. If you're getting high for the first time, you have to remind yourself to not worry about acting or thinking normally. Essentially, you have to let loose. I get all of the effects I mentioned above on very little weed. While I generally need 7.5 milligrams of edibles to feel something, when I smoke it, I really only need a few puffs to feel high. Normally, a low tolerance would be a good thing. You end up saving money if you can only smoke a quarter of a joint per session. But because I'm using cannabis for chronic pain, being able to take more weed before greening out might increase the benefits I see. I'm part of a few online communities for people with complex regional pain syndrome, and from what I gather, many people with this condition who use weed take very large amounts of weed to feel the most relief. While I do benefit from being a little high, I believe I could benefit a lot more if my body could handle a stronger or more frequent dose. As I use weed more and more, my tolerance will build and I probably won't feel such strong effects from weed. I have a feeling this will be a pretty long journey, but I want to document my usage in hopes of helping other people interested in using weed for medical conditions. That said, if you want to join me on this journey and are interested in everything cannabis, consider subscribing. I think I'm going to end this here, but please let me know how weed makes you feel in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.